Hey y'all, this is Pastor B. Has the unpredictability of your future caused you to be afraid? And not just afraid, but paralyzed by fear to the point to where you are not even trying to pursue the purpose and promise of God. Well, today we're going to talk about how to overcome the spirit of fear and how we can still be scared and do the will of God. All right. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening to today's episode. Let's jump right into it. All right. Here we go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Living from Sunday to Sunday podcast. I am your host, Pastor B. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. I believe that this is the best 15 minutes of your day because real change happens 15 minutes at a time. So today we're going to talk about the spirit of fear and how to overcome it. There are many, many things in life that we are scared of. I remember growing up being scared of clowns. Um, there was a movie that I saw when I was young, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. All it took was that one movie. Like, I don't even really remember the overall plot, but I remember seeing clowns with huge noses, with these scary looks and scary faces, um, terrorizing this particular neighborhood. And what's interesting is that one perception of who a clown is really isn't the only perception. It's not the only um, um, char- characteristics of clowns or the only examples of clowns, right? Because if you go to any birthday party, or shoot Ronald McDonald, right? It showed a different example of what a clown is. And many times, whenever we are under a spirit of fear, we believe the worst version of our current situation. And so I wanted to look at the um, the scripture in Second Timothy, um, and how operating in a spirit of fear, how it impacts our movement, right? And it impacts our forward progression. So, Second Timothy, verse 1, 6, and 7, it says, "For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self control." Right? It is very interesting to see how the spirit of fear comes to prevent us from doing the assignment, from fulfilling God's purpose in our life. It really doesn't have any other reason or any other objective, right? It comes to stop me from doing what God has called me to be and called me to do, right? Um, it's it balloons a situation, my insecurities. It makes these things be larger than they really are, just so that I can succumb to this spirit of fear and not be obedient, right? So the spirit of fear targets our mobility and obedience. We tend to see obstacles as um, impassable mountains in our ability, or our inability rather, to traverse tough terrain. We can be so afraid of the possibility and the prospect of a thing that we won't even get started. A lot of times we wish for easier paths, so that we won't face the opportunity to succeed in doing a hard thing well, right? I want my life to be easy. I want it to be free of worries, free of problems. But what that does is it robs us of the opportunity of seeing what else is in us, to seeing the greatness that lies within us, right? Walking or living in the spirit of fear, it keeps us stagnant and dormant where we are. We really will never ever reach our greatest potential if we operate in the spirit of fear. If you like the path of easiest resistance, least resistance, you're probably operating under the spirit of fear. You have um, diminished and downplayed your ability and the ability of God who walks with you to carry you through tough seasons. And that is not the way of a Christian. The Lord makes a promise to us that's problematic. He says that in this life we shall have tribulation, right? But he encourages us on the back end and says, be of good cheer because I have overcome the world. So, but the spirit of fear doesn't want us to see that, right? Um, it also the spirit of fear doesn't want us to hope in anything, hope that it's going to get better, hope that any help is on the way. It diminishes our faith both in ourselves and in God. You know, there's been plenty of times where um, while operating in the spirit of fear, I've questioned if God can really be who he says he is and really do what he says he is because um, it's comfortable being at this stage. It's comfortable living life behind the shadows. It's comfortable, living life at just the lowest possible level. You don't bother me, I won't bother you. But God didn't call us to do that, right? He wants us to thrive in every area of our lives. But in order for us to do that, we have to trust in God's power, trust in his authority, and also trust that he picked you for a reason. That greater is he that's in you. Like he's the greater one that's in us, right? And so if he's with us, if his spirit is in us, then there's nothing in this world that we face, no obstacle, no trial, no um, disrespect, no slander, no crooked methods of the enemy. None of that can stop us when we trust him and when we just put our foot forward. And making that first step, taking that first leap of faith is the we see it as the toughest step that we take. But once we make that step, everything else is easier. Everything else um, is less stressful because if God allowed us to make that first step and we didn't die, we didn't drown, then the step after that and the step after that becomes easier. Look at Peter, right? Peter is the only recorded human to walk on water because Jesus asks Peter, or Peter says, "Hey Lord, if it's you, tell me to come and I'll come." And the Lord says, "Come on." And Peter makes several steps toward Jesus. And it isn't until he focuses on the chaos around him that he begins to sink, right? The spirit of fear will always keep us distracted on our inabilities and always keeps us distracted on the overall impossibility of the task that we have to complete. Um, It'll tell us that we're in this by ourselves. It'll tell us that we don't have the necessary giftings, that we're not smart enough, that we're not brave enough, that we're not strong enough, right? These are the lies that the spirit of fear tells us. But the one thing that Joshua tells, that the Lord tells Joshua, He says, be strong and very courageous, right? Um, God reminded Joshua that you have the strength to complete it. However, you need the courage to move. And I think that's our key point today is that you have the ability, you have the skill, you have the talent, the gifting, and the calling. But we need courage to move. What is courage? Courage is doing what you're supposed to do, even if you're afraid, even while you're afraid. Um, there will be times where the fear may never ever leave. I know that anytime that I do any type of public speaking, I am always nervous. But I believe, g- given my personality, that the Lord always, that the nerves are always there because I have to rely on Him. Because if not, I would think that I'm this great, you know, um, this great speaker, this great orator, when really I'm just a regular dude with with God given gifts and abilities, and I'm trusting Him to make my abilities great, and so that He can get the glory, right? Um, but the one thing that I know for sure is that we cannot focus on um, our inabilities in what seems like um, an impossible task. Utilize courage, right? Produce action while being afraid. We live in a day and time where, you know, what we say we're going to do doesn't hold any weight. Only what we do. And the word says that only what we do for Christ will last, not what we want to do, not what we said we were going to do, not even what we're told to do. Only what we do for Christ will last. What we sacrifice, what we agree to um, commit to. These are the things that last. The next thing we have to do is to remember who's with you, right? Like I mentioned earlier, the Lord is with you. He is the supplier of your power, right? It's interesting in the text here where it says He hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but a power of love, right? God's love for us and His power that's in us should fuel us to be obedient and to do those things that He has called us to do, right? There is nothing that I do without the power of God. I would be a fool to think that what what I do for Him, that I do that in my own strength because I'm not that smart. I'm just not. Like I am flawed. I have enough issues that I deal with, and I understand that it is by God's grace that He gives me the ability to do what I'm called to do. And lastly, is that self control, right? Do the hard things, right? Take, don't allow the fear of success or the fear of failure keep you from doing what's necessary and doing those sacrificial things to bring the promise to pass, to complete the assignment, to write that book, write the song, like whatever it is. Um, we got to have some self control because only through sacrifice can you build anything that stands. I put it that way because you can build your house on um, a shaky foundation really, really quick. But when the winds come, you know, quickly built houses and buildings never stand the toughest of storms. It is those buildings that have deep roots, who have taken the time to carve out a foundation, a strong foundation, right? And so that no matter what comes, a deep foundation can um, grow to heights unknown and can stand because it has the right stuff, right? It's not built on anything shabby, right? It's gone through the process of self control, sacrifice, right? And you can do it. You can do it because what we build for Christ, what we do for Him, it lasts. All right. So I know you're scared. I know you're probably unsure, but know that greater is He that's in you, the He that's in the world. He is not going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you, and you do not have to succumb to the spirit of fear, but walk in courage, be strong, be courageous, and watch God do wonders and great wonders among you that no one's ever seen. All right. So, y'all, thank you again for listening to today's episode. You can find this podcast everywhere where podcasts are available, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. If this podcast is blessing you, let us know. Leave us a 5-star rating and let us know how we can help you, how this podcast is blessing you. And until next week, y'all have a great week, and I'll see you when I see you. Thank you for listening to the Living from Sunday to Sunday podcast. All episodes are available everywhere where podcasts can be found. Make sure that you like the show, download, and subscribe so you won't miss out on any of the future episodes. Remember, real change happens between Sundays. Talk to you soon.